Well, thank you very much, Dr. Joyce Wigwe, the elder sister of the late Herbert Wigwe. Thank you so much for talking to us.
Pleasure is mine.
Yeah. So tell me, how has it been for the family? How have you been coping since the death of Herbert?
It's been the most difficult year we've ever been through. My father is 90 and he says even the Civil War was not as bad as this year. We haven't had a chance to mourn Herbert, Doreen, and Chizzy. Right from the passing of Herbert to this day, it has been turbulent. The family has been through a very difficult time. We come from a very small family. We're children, 6 of us. My late brother, Osita, who was the first, passed on. It was really, really hard. It took us 10 years to be able to even come together as a family to mourn Osita. Then now, Herbert, the second son, each of them at the point at which they are rising, they get cut off. So it's been particularly hard for my parents, particularly the way Herbert passed on. We all spoke with Herbert coincidentally the day before he passed on. I, in particular, we're all in London together. We spoke for over an hour, cracking jokes about, just normal family jokes from time when we grew up. For example, my mom is Efik. So
it's been a year that the late banking mogul, Herbert Wigwe, passed on to eternal glory. In this video, the elder sister of Herbert Wigwe will be sharing how it has been for the family, the children, and the estate owned by Herbert Wigwe, and a lot of lessons, a lot of lessons that you need to pick from this, and this will help you to shape your life decisions. If you are just coming across this channel for the first time, kindly hit the subscribe button and stay tuned for information that will transform your life. Boom! Let's get in.
I say, Herbert, how are you doing? He'll say, oh, how I make Kang, which is an old Efik saying. So we laughed over that, and I said, where is that coming from? He talked about his children growing up. He talked about how his life was going to change, talked about each of the children, where he saw them growing up. And he just talked about his businesses, his challenges. So we just had a long conversation. We spoke to my sister Peggy, spoke to Emeka. So we all spoke that day. And, coincidentally, he had a friend that was being buried in Virginia. And I said to him, well, why don't you just pass by there and, You
had no feeling you were talking to him?
No, I had no feeling because, in fact, we had agreed. He told me about Wharton University, the arrangement they had with Wigwe University and how he was going to bring the best to Wigwe University. So Wharton, they were going to come to a contractual arrangement to be able to partner with Wigwe. So I said to him, oh, okay, I'd love to be at the meeting because I went to Stanford, so we'll be able to talk at that level. And he says, okay. He would come back. It was about the 15th of February this was going to hold. So we agreed we'll all connect about that time because I was still going to be in London. And I said, guess what? On your way back, maybe you just pass through London, pick me up, and we'll come back to Nigeria together. Of course, there was no idea that this was going to be the last conversation. Passed through Washington or Virginia for Kobile's funeral, and he says, oh, I can't, because of timing and all that. But anyway, I'll send something to them. And okay, so we'll see when you come back. Oh, he's going, for the Super Bowl. And I said, okay, fine. And he said to me, oh, what are you going to Nigeria to do? I said, I want to go and see Daddy and Mommy. I hadn't seen them a while. And he says, okay, so we'll reconnect. And so so we came from a small family, extremely close. My father is not polygamous. My mom was, a nurse working hard. So we were quite tight-knit, 6 of us, 3 boys, 3 girls. And we supported each other growing up. So you can imagine how hard it is for us.
So tell me, how exactly did you feel when you got the news? And when exactly did you get the news that that accident had happened?
So I got the news while we were in London. Ike was the one who shared the news with us. And we were completely devastated, of course, because we had just spoken with him, right? And there was the whole story about, oh no, there might just be a slim hope, maybe the bodies hadn't been found and all that. So I said to them, okay, well, let's wait to see what happens. And when we waited and it was confirmed that they weren't coming, so I said, you know, I want to go and bring back my family with dignity. I told my parents and I spoke to Ike. I said, you know, I want to escort Herbert back home. I want to escort Chizoba and Chizzy back home. They will not come back I'm sorry. I said, they will not come back by themselves. I want to go and bring them home. They can't just come back home like that. And so in course of that conversation, I was liaising with Ike's wife, Ofowe, who happened to have been in America. Even with Chizoba's sister, Paulina, who also was in America. And the whole idea was, okay, well, let's see what the processes were. I knew the consul, I knew the ambassador of Nigeria to America. So we're working together to make sure all the paperwork was ready to be able to get the bodies ready. You know, coincidentally, Herbert's niece on Chizoba's side and my daughter were in California together. And Herbert had invited them to join them on the trip. So my daughter and Nikki were both getting ready to go and join them for the Super Bowl the night, you know, the day before. So, and then my son, Chizzy, had just posted to my son how he was going for the Super Bowl. And so my son was like, oh my goodness, I've been watching all the playoffs, you know, and you guys are now going, right? So that's the kind of relationship we had. So you can imagine that when this now happened, I now said, no, they can't come back home. You know, this is the least we can do for them. They need to come back home with dignity. Eventually, Ike said, oh, my parents really needed our support and our help, and we weren't sure when the paperwork was all going to be perfected. And so we needed to come back home. And I said, okay, I'll come back home, you know, on condition that when it is ready, I will go back home and I don't want them to come back by themselves just like that. That the least we can do is escort them home. And so he says, okay, yes, that would work. And so my sister and I, of course, we changed our arrangements and came back together. And then what we did on our way back, because Ike and his team were holding the fort at the time, so we said, oh, where are you? When we got into Ikoyi, he said he was in his office in Gerard Road. And we said, okay, there were plans and arrangements to be made. So on our way to see my parents, you have to pass through Gerard Road anyway to get up the Lekki Link Bridge. We said, okay, we will stop by on our way from the airport so that you tell us what the plans were, that things that needed to be done and all that, and before we go up. And so we stopped by him. I think, and we saw them all, they all were in the meeting. But I think what struck me was that he came to meet with us with a lawyer. Let me tell you, so I was in a state of shock and frenzy.
That's when you got the news?
When I got the news. My parents, this is strange. My father was in his house in Lekki, had not heard about the accident, but his body was on fire. He was so hot, steaming.
That's what he told you?
Yes, he was sweating. My mother, everyone there said it. He was sweating. His outfit was soaked. He was so hot. He took off his shirt. He just was screaming how hot he was. My mother said, well, we don't understand. Should we take you to the hospital or should we take you to church? Because there was no way of telling, is this supposed to be a sudden illness or is this supposed to be a sudden spiritual attack? What my parents didn't know at the time, my father didn't realize, is that their son was burning. So you can only imagine the connection Herbert and his father had, that at the time he was burning, my father was burning at the same time in Nigeria without knowing what was going on. That just begins to give you an insight into the sort of family and closeness we have. My parents night before, were quarreling. And they said, we don't even know what the quarrel is about. They were quarreling, my father was on fire. So there was sudden completely, there was a problem without anybody knowing. So my mom said they were trying to decide, should we just go to church or go to hospital? And they couldn't decide. This was until I understand that the news, Evelyn Oputu came and broke that. That is when they realized why my father was boiling in his house in Nigeria. And I'm just saying this to you just to let you know the sort of deep relationship Herbert had with his parents and with his siblings. We came from a very, very close home. We don't, of course, like everybody, you disagree with each other. We can't say, oh, we're always nice and perfect. No, we disagree because we're different human beings.
Okay. Now, after all of this, I mean, Herbert has been buried, and you look at the dramatic turn that things have now taken, that you're now in court, and you know, there's this impression of a big fight now within the family over Herbert's estate. Tell me how you feel about it.
So maybe, I don't know where to start. I don't know whether I should start from the fact that from when Herbert passed on, or whether I should start from the recent
So when
lawsuit.
exactly did this disagreement, if you like, actually begin?
You know, from where we sit, we didn't realize there was a disagreement. And why we didn't realize there was the disagreement was because Herbert's friends, plus Iboje, told my father that, oh no, you've lost Herbert, but we're all here as your children. So we let our guards down. And Herbert, if your son brings a friend, you accept the friend. We had no reason to critically scrutinize anybody, right? Herbert had brought a friend home, and so we accepted. You know, just like whether the wives they marry or the friends they have, our parents accept them in and accept their families as well. My parents were particularly close to Ike's family as well, particularly his late mom. May her soul rest in peace. We didn't realize there was a problem. I mean, but what you could tell from beginning was there was obvious from the funeral that Ike and his wife kept flanking the kids and would not let us close to the kids. We noticed this consecutively. At some point, even Chizoba's siblings thought we were the ones orchestrating it. And so when we tried to even change the seating arrangement, we came back and we found out that Access Bank staff had gone back to putting it the way their boss had asked them to do. Even then, we still did not think there was a problem. I mean, we just thought, okay, well, fine. If you want to sit close to the children, I mean, this is neither here nor there. As this was going on, they would come and hold meetings. Ike would want to hold meetings with my father, with his lawyer in camera, and say, oh, no, this is confidential. Let's all leave. Again, we respected.
Oh, really?
Oh, yes. We respected it because they would come to the house and take daddy into the room.
And they wouldn't allow any family member.
And they wouldn't allow any family member, just my dad, you know, into the room. And my dad would say, okay, that's fine. I mean, he can handle it. Then they said to my dad, oh, this is confidential. You must not tell anybody. My father believed them and would not tell us, the children. You know, at some point we thought, why are you having meetings? I mean, I'm a lawyer. Why can't I be in the meetings? So Emeka is there. Why can't we be in the meetings? He said, oh, no, they said it's confidential. Let's have the meetings.
Emeka is the younger brother.
Emeka is Herbert's, yes, younger brother of Herbert. And so we let them have these meetings. In course of this, they said to my dad that he needed to sign some documents. What were the documents? Well, they said they had met Tochi and discussed with Tochi, Herbert's daughter, my niece, to say, who would you like to work with you on Herbert's estate? And my niece said to them, oh, she wants to work with her grandfather. That's my dad. Because they were very close. For every vacation they went with my parents. So there is a close, extremely close relationship. So Tochi said she wants to work with her grandfather on this thing. And so I believe they signed a document. My father signed, she signed. But the lawyer didn't leave the document behind. And each time we asked him for a copy of the document, the lawyer is Paulo Soro, he wouldn't leave any. He would say,
so your dad was not given a copy of the document?
My father was not given a copy of the document. And each time we asked, he said, oh, I'm bringing it. Oh, I'm traveling. Oh, you said, can you just send it by phone? He refused. But this was, it was explained to him, letter of administration.
Because you wanted to know what
Because
what
we
the
wanted to know. I'm a
was
lawyer.
about.
I want to know exactly what it is that you've made my father sign, other than the explanation that it's a letter of administration, which his granddaughter wanted to work with him on her father's estate. And
During this period, were you able to reach the granddaughter?
Oh, yes, because we've always had a close relationship with the children. So we've never had a problem with the granddaughter. We were able to reach the granddaughter. She used to come to the house. They had just finished a family vacation with with her grandparents in South Africa up to January. They were all together where the younger daughter had surgery on her back. So there was definitely no problem. In fact, but I said to the granddaughter at the time, I said, you know,
that's your niece.
That my niece, I said to my niece at the time, I said, whatever they ask you to sign, please just make sure you always keep a copy for yourself, just for history, because, you know, you as a lawyer, just keep a copy for yourself. And she says, yes, Auntie, I will. And that was the last conversation I had with her. And so but somehow what we didn't realize is that they had been tinkering with what they said was Herbert's will. The only way we knew it was that when we went back to the court papers in Florida, it looked like from when Herbert passed on.
That will, let's talk about it, because it's at the center of the disagreement now. At what point did you realize there was a will and that this will was brought in?
We were told in September that there was a will. And so we were told that there's a will to be read. My father, Ike, came and told my father in August, oh, Daddy, you must be tired. Herbert, you know, what always sent you to Lancerhof for a medical check and all that. So my dad was really happy. Oh, my goodness, thank you so much, right? So he shipped them off to Lancerhof. Now, there was a whole drama that happened with that because they used Herbert's aircraft. The staff organized it. And they didn't tell Ike they were using. But typically, my parents would go with help. So because there was no ticket provided for anybody to go, because typically Herbert would get somebody to go with my parents, but there was no extra ticket provided. So when there's no extra ticket provided, he would use Herbert's private jet. So the staff, knowing this was the normal thing that would happen, in absence of a ticket for a third person, organized the private jet that sent my parents first to London. Ike heard about it and was livid, was very upset that he wasn't told about it. Now, I don't know what happens behind, but my parents got the lashing for that because they called him severally, called Polusoro severally, and nobody picked up their phone calls. And so they got really tense because if you see an old man of 90 and his wife of 80-something being stuck in a hotel in London, didn't know what was going to happen next because Ike was upset that they had used Herbert's plane. And so they had to start saving their money because my dad wasn't sure what was going to happen. Since he wasn't picking his calls, he would have to buy a ticket to come back to Nigeria. With a lot of pressure being put, I understand that eventually Herbert's driver in London, a ticket was got for him to escort my parents to Lancerhof. By which time, my father was already so stressed that he developed what's known as shingles. Now, shingles is a viral infection that I hear affects the central nervous system, and it actually does cause a lot of pain. And so my dad fell really ill in Austria. So while ill in Austria, I sent him a message, oh, we're about to read the will. And my father was in a state of frenzy because he had not been told about the will.
Just your dad was told?
Just
the other
my
family
dad.
Members were
no,
not
I
told.
was not told. Emeka was not told. No other family member was told. And we found out a bit unusual because you sent my father abroad. When you asked that the will was going to be, you fixed the date for the reading of the will. You knew you had sent him abroad, and then you refused to let us know. My dad, a 90-year-old man, was in a state of frenzy. He's never had to be involved in reading of his child's will. Didn't know what to do. Called Emeka, can you go? Emeka thought, it's a bit unusual. I'm right here. Why couldn't Iboje reach out to me? And come and, you know, pick. And besides, my niece, would she go in a different car? Would Tochi go in a different car from me? We're all Wigways. It's our will. So we should go together. So Emeka felt that there is something unusual about this. I would not go without going with Tochi. You know, this is our child. I can't be separate from her. So he said he wasn't going. My father was in Lancerhof. He panicked because he didn't know what to do. And they said to him, well, they were going to read the will. So they went ahead Emeka didn't go. I hear, well...
And your dad wasn't there?
And my dad wasn't there. So we were not represented. We had read the will. So we got a lawyer to get us a copy of what was read because it wasn't shared with us. So we got a copy of what was read. And that was when the, red flags came up. And the first thing was, it was a 3-page document that they presented. This 3-page document spoke to a trust asset. There was no trust asset attached to this document. There were no list of beneficiaries attached. Any lawyer would know that the basics of a trust were not met. How can you speak to a trust? So what are you sharing if there's no assets to be shared? Who are you sharing it to, and in what proportions is it being shared to? Where was this will made? So we looked at it and we said, no, there is something, this is an incomplete document at best, if it is genuine. Why is this document being filed in the probate in Lagos? Was it filed elsewhere? When you look at it, you now find out that it was a document that was actually prepared in Florida. So we put on our hats and reached out.
The date on the will?
The date on the will was sometime in 2013. So we now decided to go to the Florida courts to see if it was lodged there, if Herbert lodged the will there. And the next thing we found out that if Herbert wanted it to be of general applicability with his primary domicile place in Nigeria, surely he would lodge it in Lagos court here. That wouldn't be too much. Somehow, Herbert didn't put it here. And I don't even believe it was even lodged in Florida until after Herbert passed on. Anyway, so we now went and had to went through several hoops to be able to get into the Florida court documents to find the complete documents. So they filed a 3-page in Nigeria. The full document is like 18 pages. Why wasn't the full document filed? That was a problem we had. The full document now showed us that the will spoke to a trust asset, and the trust asset was one trust asset, which was Herbert's property in Florida. And it was said to be limited in jurisdiction to Florida. So why was it brought here? And why wasn't it filed here?
So basically the will didn't cover his property in Nigeria?
No. So they come and tell you, oh, there's an omnibus clause that tells you it's for property anywhere in the world. And we said, okay, fine. Number one, we found it misleading that the full document is not being signed. What are you hiding from? What is it that you're hiding? Secondly, the will spoke to personal representatives, and a personal representative Herbert puts there is a Betty Blanco. And then Uche was next in line.
Uche, that's your cousin.
Uche, my cousin. Now, if you look at the court documents in Florida, there was a settlement agreement they had with Betty Blanco. We understand Betty was paid off in millions of dollars. We don't even know if Betty was paid off from Herbert's estate. Where was the money got from to pay? And why weren't we being told about this? So she was now brought, this document was now brought and put in Nigeria. Now, can you bring the entirety? In other words, even if there was a settlement agreement, we want to understand that you say, okay, Betty is no longer part of it. Who
actually brought the document?
Between Aiboje and Polusor, his lawyer. So they bring it here and they remove Betty's name. And we say, but why is Betty's name not there? Why has it stepped down to Uche Wigwe?
So you saw Betty's name in
Betty's name is in the original document. I can share the documents with you. It's not a secret. It's a court document, public document. Betty's name is there. So if there's a confidential agreement, you can either bring the totality of everything and lodge it in Nigeria. You can't pick and choose the bits that work for you and you bring it here. And secondly, you bring it here without a trust. What assets were you planning to apply to this will in Nigeria? Were you going to create another trust? Or what was the asset? We don't know. So as a family, these were red flags. Betty Blanco being paid off millions of dollars. Her name is not there anymore. Why did he step down to Uche? Why is Aiboje the sole trustee of Herbert's estate worldwide? Why is he hiding under this? Why don't we know how?
Excuse me.
Yes.
was it in the will that Igboje would be the sole trustee of?
The will, because of the step down in Florida, had Doreen. So yes, for Igboje, people had died. Doreen had passed on. Chizzy had passed on. So he stepped down to Igboje. But when he brought it here to Nigeria, he excluded that part and put forward the part of personal representative. And we said, oh no, if you want to be sole trustee, well, make it known. Let it be a public, let the world know what is going on, that you want to be sole trustee of Herbert's estate worldwide, right? And not just limited to the jurisdiction in Florida. And I think that is where all hell let loose, because he said, why do we dare question the will that he brought? Because what we did was come on, let's file a caveat. Let's stopping the court from actually giving them this letter.
So that's what actually gave rise to that caveat.
That was what gave rise to the caveat. And he said to us, no, you have to pull out the caveat. And we said, no, because of all of these red flags. We called him, our lawyer called him. Let's have a conversation about this so that we can clarify it. A caveat is a caveat. It just says beware. We can always pull it out. That's not a problem for us. But we needed to bring him to the table so we can have a conversation. And he said he wasn't going to honor us with a conversation. We didn't deserve a conversation from him. My lawyer wrote to his lawyer, and they refused to honor us with a conversation. Because of that, we put the caveat in, and we decided that, oh, well, in that case, he would, let's go to court and find out what happened. So he was actually he has actually since then been extremely upset at us. And as a result of that, he stopped paying my parents their monthly stipend. So as a lawyer practicing in America and called to California bar, I guess the question is, if I were to take a trip to Herbert's mind to be able to decide why did he buy this property and why did he create a will of this nature? I mean, a will that says there's only one trust asset. It is, Herbert had properties in other parts of the world, but this one did not talk about any other trusts, any other assets, talked about this one property in Florida, the things that pertain to this property in Florida, limited in jurisdiction to Florida. So I would only imagine that as a lawyer, what would I advise my clients? So typically, there is a whole issue of taxes that come up. And as much as possible, most businessmen are business savvy and then try to ensure that their properties are immune from taxes as much as possible, or at least limited number of taxes, limited amount of taxes. And so I believe that Herbert did that to be able to, ensure that he curtails, issues that pertain to property and inheritance taxes. I think if we look more into it, you will find out that that is really the truth. That is why Betty Bianco actually set that thing up, and then she was the one that was actually put there to ensure that, issues that pertain to his taxes, because Herbert is really an American citizen. So you see, if for any reason those property, that will is brought with the trust asset here to Nigeria, it would incur huge amount of taxes because the American government follows its property. So they knew that if they bring that whole document here, Herbert's children are going to have to sue because when they come of age, because of the huge amount of taxes that it will attract. So I can only imagine that this legal team, Paul Lusora and his team, if they are not quite clear on what they're doing, they might end up putting themselves in trouble. Because when these children come of age and they are hit with a huge amount of tax because of all of these maneuverings of Herbert's quote-unquote will of a trust asset that was limited in jurisdiction, it's going to cause a lot of problems for them. So I believe that is why Herbert did it. So, and this was in 2013. Having spoken to Herbert several times after, Herbert has trusts he has set up in all over the world, and Igboje's name is nowhere to be found in any of this. Neither is Tenjen found in any of this. He has it in New York, like I said. He has it, in Nigeria. He even has in Nigeria, by the way, and he has in London. He has in Cyprus. So as he became smarter, he did other things. So, so wanting to bring this document, which is not domiciled or which was not filed with the court in Nigeria, is filed that they want to bring it with general applicability here and all over the world, it is going to only put them in trouble when these children become of age.
Let's go to the caveat now. I mean, you said something that, when you filed the caveat, so Herbert after then stopped.
Ike.
I mean, yeah, sorry, Ike after then stopped providing allowances for your
To
dad.
my
So
parents.
yeah, so just
Yes.
go on along that
So
line.
we noticed suddenly that the monthly stipend, so Ike had graciously been providing stipend the way Herbert was providing stipend for my parents. But after the caveat, we noticed he stopped. When he was asked why he stopped by mediators, and he said because he believed that my father was using the money he was providing for him to pay lawyers to sue him, and so he would not give him any money because he believed the money was coming from, it's from his pocket, Iboje. And we said, oh, thank you so much for being so gracious. But we believe that Herbert's estate has enough money to look after his parents. So please, can we get an interim, we'll file an interim application of the court to let us know Herbert's interest in Access Bank, 10-gen, coronation, his life insurance, and all the things that pertain to Herbert. And then the court can actually, from them, actually make an interim order so that the parents can be looked after, pending when the suit is finally determined.
So the story that your dad was fighting the granddaughter over Herbert's assets. That's...
My father will never fight a child of his. In fact, he told Iboje and Usoros repeatedly, he's never been to court all his life. So he is completely averse to court. And he said to them, we need to work as one. We will never go to court over any issue. So I believed that they now rode on the back of that. And we had begun to hear snippets of the fact that they're going to pitch him, to really give him the punch, pitch him against his granddaughter. And we didn't believe it would come to pass until what had happened. So I'll just take you back a little bit. When we filed the action for Iboje and Uche, and regarding Access Bank, providing the details of Herbert's shares, dividends, all the Herbert's entitlements, so that the court can make this application. We understand Iboje said it was, more or less over his dead body that we could get this information. So of course they said, no, you're not going to get any information about this Herbert's interest anywhere. And so this...
And for you, you just wanted to know, your dad just wanted to know...
My dad just wanted a sense of transparency and accountability, because suddenly he has grandchildren who don't have parents anymore. They needed to be looked after. Like Herbert kept telling us, and told me in particular, Okachi is 2 years old. We need to provide for him all through and make sure he's all right. My dad just wants to know that his children are being provided for. Several times called Iboje, we need to be able to know Herbert's interest and how it is being stored, so that as these children grow older, they would have access to it without a problem. My dad is 90 years old. He would not always be with these children, but let's come up with a structure to make sure that these things are properly invested so that these children will get the benefit when they come of age. When my dad asked these questions, it became a problem because they refused. They said they were not going to tell my dad anything. All he should be interested in is his monthly stipend, and they can't give it to him because he's asking too many questions.
Could that be because they felt they were dealing with Herbert's daughter?
Well, because initially they cut my dad off because they said my dad was asking too many questions, and their excuse was that my dad was being manipulated by me and my brother. I said, but my dad doesn't suffer from dementia. My dad was the director of NTA. My dad was in the military. My dad is corpus mentis and he has MBA. He's an engineer, fellow of the Nigeria Society of Engineers. He has an MBA. So he's quite capable of understanding issues. So there is no way that he shouldn't ask basic questions, but they considered it to be an affront to them that the grandfather should ask them to be transparent about Herbert's estate. And so they pushed him aside and said, no, even the document you signed, we're not going to use it. We will deal with Tochi and Tochi alone. She's 25 and more than able to handle these things. So at the time, they now raised questions about, they said they wouldn't answer us, right, regarding the transparency of Herbert's interest. At the same time, they went and got Tochi with the help of Polusoro, took Tochi to magistrate's court to get a document that says that she was a guardian to the children, which was never an issue, because if you have a look at our pleadings, what we asked for was that grandpa wants to work with his granddaughter to nurture and bring up the younger ones. So it was never against Tochi. It was a question of, we want to work with Tochi. In fact, our further relief said, Grandpa, Tochi, the children, we all need therapy to go through this very difficult time. So it was, if anyone who takes time to read the pleadings will see that we're actually asking to work together with Tochi. Now, their lawyer, Polusoro happens to be the chairman of Access Bank. He happens to be Ike's lawyer. He happens to be Tochi's lawyer. And he happens to be the lawyer to the 3 children. We have a problem with that because he can't be lawyer to every single person there. There is a conflict of interest. These children are minors and they need to have their separate representation if you needed. Polusoro decided that, oh no, made an application to court to have Tochi joined in the suit. He applied to court because why would we sue Tochi? She doesn't have the documents for Access Bank. She doesn't have the documents for 10Gen. It's Aiboje and Polusoro and Uche that have these documents. So that is why Aiboje and Polusoro and Uche were the defendants. And their lawyer, Polusoro,
so originally,
he went and filed to the court. Polusoro filed the court, got the leave of the court. Then he joined Tochi and then pushed it out there. Oh, grandfather is suing granddaughter. So my father can never, will never, none of us will never sue our child. We can't sue our child. We love our children. We love on our children. Anybody who knows us knows we dote on our children. And our children are extremely close to one another. So it could never have happened. It was mischief by Polusoro, requesting that because we had heard that they had touted before that, oh, they want to see how he's going to be pitted against his granddaughter and see how he feels about it in the courthouse. So they sneakily brought that in and then pushed it forward as the narrative in the courthouse. You know, he's actually quite devastated by that, and to think that he trusted them implicitly before, and this is what they chose to do, has been actually quite heart-wrenching for him because he can't believe it.
The case not quite long ago, I mean, a judge in Lagos State ruled against your dad over his pleadings in court now, asking that, you know, an interim administrator be set up, and then making several other requests.
So, yes, so this was it. This was the interim application we put forward. And just asking that my parents need to be maintained in their life, and we needed to have transparency on what belongs to Herbert and set up a formal structure on how this can run in a sustainable manner so that the younger children can benefit. You know, my brother, you and I, by the grace of God, are still alive. We can still work for our children. But these children don't have their parents to work for them anymore. If their parents have worked so hard for them, wouldn't it be in everybody's interest that these things are properly invested and everybody knows about it? So that when they grow up, regardless of, Herbert was taken away, you know, suddenly. Anybody can go away suddenly. But at least if there are structures in place where these children can know and be able to get the benefit, then that is all we ask for. We just ask for transparency and accountability. We just want to know.
But the impression is that, look, Tochi should be able to handle all of this, and that it shouldn't concern you.
But you, I don't know if you have a child 25-year-old. I think anybody that has a child 25-year-old who came from, you know, she was quite comfortable background, and, you know, Tochi had barely worked a month or so in her life. I mean, these are complex corporate matters, right? Which even you and I, if we were involved, we would need layers of lawyers and accounting and financing to be able to advise us. So tell me what a 25-year-old girl, whose parents were suddenly taken away and left at the mercy with no help from grandparents or uncles or aunties. She's left in the middle there, and she said, oh, you are going to make the decision. She had barely worked a month or two before her parents passed. Where is she going to get the business acumen, the knowledge from, without the help from family members to be able to go through it? Besides, she's gone through an extremely difficult time losing her closest sibling and her parents. How can she then be of such sharp business acumen, such sharp mind, that she's going to make such complex business decisions? Tochi is a child of this home. She has a family. She has every sibling of Herbert is a professional. You know, whether you talk about lawyer, accounting, computer, that everyone is a professional. Tochi can get the benefit of knowledge from advice from everybody, including her grandfather. And we're seeking for transparency and accountability. I guess the question we haven't been able to unravel is, why would Aiboje decide to deal with Tochi alone, flanked by Polusoro, and Tochi is not allowed to reach out and get the benefit of advice from her father's siblings or from her grandparents or from people that she truly knows are her family, with money or without money? Why would you want to cordon her off and manipulate her and keep her and exclude her from everybody else where she can get help and get advice? Why does she need to get clearance from you to even talk to her aunties and her uncles? It's mind-boggling, and we don't understand what is going on, because if truly he says he's sincere and he says he means well for Herbert and the children, I think he would want to be able to, get the best for them, and let me go back a little bit. When we filed our action in court asking for application, we actually asked for the court that we want to have it in camera. In camera meaning that we want a private hearing, because these are young children who have just recently had this devastating news. It's a bit too much for them to be involved in social media and all the stories it comes. They have access to phones. So can we have this court hearing in private? There is also Herbert's parents, 90 years old, who are also frail and fragile. So it would be in the best interest of the family to have a private hearing so that someone who truly considers himself Herbert's friend and Herbert's brother should want to promote this. When we filed this in court asking for a private meeting and hearing in camera, they turned it down and they refused. That no, they wanted it to be in public. And the question is, why would you want it to be in public? I guess what comes to my mind is it was done to smear my father, Tochi's grandfather, because he had always said he hated anything that had to do with court, and he hated to be in front of any papers for anything that pertained to his son's estate. If it was in camera, then his name won't be out there. But to be able to smear him and make him feel embarrassed because he dared to question them about the will they brought forward. So they decided, no, it's going to be in the front pages so that you truly get smeared and it doesn't matter what happens.
The impression being created out there is that in that will actually willed every of Herbert's property, everything, to the daughter, and that the family is trying to take that away.
So let me give you two things. Number one, like I said, this document that is referred to as a will was a 3-page document. The document that they put in the court here did not even talk about, they don't even mention the beneficiaries. And Herbert has 4 kids. So it doesn't even mention the beneficiaries. That's number one. And it doesn't even mention even one trust asset. I don't know if you're a lawyer, but a will without a trust asset, where are you going to get the assets to put in this will? Where are you going to create them from, except if you plan on creating a new trust to attach to this will, which would be criminal, of course. And I hope that is not what they were planning to do. So it wasn't just Tochi. Tochi has siblings. Because Herbert has trusts for his children. He has trust in New York. He has trust in London. He has trust in Cyprus. He had trust for his children. And each of them was given an equal share of interest in it. So Tochi is not the only beneficiary. I understand that Ike had actually reached out to the trust in London, and he was told that he could not be given any information except, of course, he's the guardian to the children. So You know, when I suddenly saw that, you know, Tochi was being cordoned off her family and then being taken, taken to magistrate court to get a guardianship certificate, it made me, it kind of raises your antenna, because now you're wondering, you're cordoning her off, she's guardian, so she goes back to London, she's guardian, and so she has complete access to even that which belongs to her kids, and you have complete control over her. Now, the question we even raised was, why would Tochi need a guardian certificate? A child who had already said to her grandfather, I want to work with you, Grandpa, on her daddy's estate. But guess what? When they took her to guardianship, when they took her to the magistrate court, I understand the law that was used is the kind of law you use for children on the streets, vagabond children that have no families. You know, it is an insult to us that you should cost our child, police or cost our child to go through a magistrate court with using a law that was for children that had no home, no background, children on the streets that had no families. Tochi comes from a family. David, Hannah, and Okachi come from a family that is well loved and nurtured up to this point in time in life. When did they become kids on the streets that you take them round without the notification of the grandparents, the aunties, or the uncles? How do you go and get such certificate? We're in Nigeria. Anybody who goes to Rivers State knows exactly where our home is. We're not a secret family. We've all held public positions. I have held positions in private sector and government and public sector. My father has done the same. My brothers have done the same. My sisters have done the same. So we're not a secret family. We're not a family where you say we don't know where we come from. So why would you make this poor child go and get a certificate of a child like she has no, like she's a vagabond on the street?
So for you, the interest of your family is basically about transparency. And you want to know what the interest of Herbert is in Access Bank and
yes, can you just come up plain with it? Because Herbert told me on at least 2-3 occasions when he was flying to New York, he said, Chilo, you know, Okachi is only 2 years old. You know, each time he reminded me that this is the age of my last child. So I need to ensure that this child is properly taken care of in my absence. You know, and these are the things I want for Hannah and David and all that. So he kept telling me what he wanted. So the least we can do as a family is to be able to ensure that these children have exactly what their father had desired for them. And one of it is, the first thing is, be transparent. This is what Herbert has. If he's your partner and in a partnership, one person dies, does the other partner take up everything? No, the partnership, it is either it is dissolved and it is transparently dissolved, so we know what belongs to the other partner, or there's a replacement, you know, depending on, so you can't just inherit everything to the exclusion of anything that has to do with the rest of the family. So that is where we have a problem. All we want is, we want to know what belongs to Herbert, how is it being invested, or where is it being invested. We want to be able to identify it, because if Jehovah Lord calls anybody, the people alive must be able to say, oh no, if you go to so-and-so investment trust, so-and-so investment, you know, and we have a precedent. 2 things. My brother Osita passed on, and it befell Herbert to be able to sort out Osita's estate. Herbert sorted out Osita's estate, put his interest in trust. Then Osita's son was a baby, because Osita passed on when his wife was expecting. Herbert finished, put it on, and gave the document to the wife and said, here are the trust documents, this is where it is, my hands are off, do with it as you please. That's transparency. You know, so if you want to sell it off, if you want to spend the money, but I have done what I believe I should do, and here it is, do it as you want. But we don't have that from Iboje. And to worsen it is, I take you a little bit back. Chizzy, to tell you how close my family is, when Chizzy graduated from university, we have a family culture. Every single person in the family was present. My siblings, my children, other people's children were all present. From the mother's side, from the father's side, plus friends. Iboje, Aliko, all of them, Dero Tubu, Idero. We We took up almost the whole hotel in Ritz-Carlton and another hotel, because that is the precedent Herbert, because Herbert was heavy on family and heavy on education. And that's the family we come from. We have pictures to show. When it was time, Tochi was graduating in June, July.
Last year.
Yeah, last year, after Herbert passed on. None of us was allowed there.
Really?
No. Aiboje took Tochi by himself. So if you see the pictures, it's Aiboje, Tochi, Uche, Iderog, and then they invited my sister who lives in Canada. She could join them. And my father was quite upset. My father asked Aiboje, is this my daughter's graduation or your daughter's graduation? I mean, how come we and my family is not represented in my granddaughter's graduation? So you usurp it or you take it and then you FaceTime me, oh, see Tochi's graduation. We have a precedent. We don't do like that. We actually walk to, and this was more important because Tochi had just lost her parents and her sibling. So we were particularly pained because we believed that we should all be there to rejoice with her. We know what it meant to Herbert, to have her go back to Imperial College for masters. It meant everything to him. He was truly happy and proud. So you can imagine that we wanted to celebrate with her. You know, my parents, all of us were gearing up. My brother Emeka wanted to go. Aiboje told him, no need, don't come. Stopped him from going. As for me, I wasn't even told the date, you know. So we were not even, and the next time we saw was this picture of herself, Aiboje, you know, them taking pictures. And my father was really upset and says, whose graduation is this? This cannot be my child's graduation. We have a precedent in our family.
Tell me, the incident that happened in Port Harcourt, what exactly happened?
It's interesting you should ask.
That's the one that happened at your village, Isiokpo?
Yes. So leading up to the 9th of February, we decided we're going to have a memorial for Herbert Wigwe and Doreen. We decided it was going to be in Isiokpo. So my dad said, let's work on it together. Reach out to ICE and Access Bank team so that we have one team. So we put it together. We reached out to them and said, oh, we want to do this. The response we got was that ICE wasn't prepared to work with us on. And so as it was heating up that there were going to be 2 events, we even had people coming to, even Lagos State Governor came in, you know, like, oh, surely you people must have one event. And we said, we've reached out to them for one event. But they said, no, they were going ahead. In fact, their event was, I believe it was probably initially set for the next day, but they chose to do it on the same day, in the evening, 4th. So we actually believe that maybe at the end, they were going to fly in for ours and then come for theirs in the evening. But they didn't invite us. You know, we invited them, but they didn't even they didn't even invite my father, Herbert's father, for the event.
That was taking place there?
That was taking place here in Access, you know, in Lagos. So what happened now? We actually went on with our preparations. The day before the event, Saturday, at about in the morning, we had workers, of course, preparing the place for the event. We were going to have people come in and all. The workers informed us that they had been asked to leave the premises, leave the mausoleum premises. Who asked you to leave the mausoleum premises? Some security men, armed police, and all that, that the Aiboje had come. It was a bit surprising to us because we were not told and were not informed. So we said, oh, okay. I mean, it was Saturday preparing for events. So we said, oh, okay, let's drive and go and see what's going on. So we just jumped into one car, my father's car, and we just drove down there. When we drove down there, you know, there was this barrage of security people, armed policemen, some of them masked, some without mask, DSS, you know, plain clothes, nothing less than 30 to 40 security personnel with their cars. So we said, oh, wanted to drive in mausoleum. They said, no, you can't drive in. Can we park the car and walk in? No, you can't come in, so we're locking the gate. Can you call the person that gave you this authority? They said, okay, they're going to take permission. Came back and said, no, you're not allowed in. My brother Emeka then called Ike. He refused to pick up his phone. Can we go in? Can we walk in?
For something
that is in our village, our university, a private mausoleum. In fact, we were quite shocked. Call him, he said no, he wasn't coming. So of course, it was a provocation because we stood there for a while. Can you come in? Can you let us in? Can you? No. We said, but this is our space. I mean, why would you leave Lagos and come here to intimidate us? This is a bit too much. So Emeka was upset and said, okay, well, let's see how you're going to drive out of here without seeing us. Because you don't even want to come and say hello to us. Let's see how you're going to drive up here without seeing us. Apparently, when they were ready to leave, the gates beside, I don't know what happened to the keys. They broke the gates padlock. And then so Emeka stood in front and said, okay, now let us see how you drive without speaking to me. And so the security personnel pulled Emeka out of the road so that they could drive through. So Emeka was now struggling with the personnel. Just like, if you've actually been in any of these convoys, they were now driving very fast. Emeka fell down on the floor. Like, they'll pull him, and they were manhandling him up to 3 times. They almost hit him. They actually almost killed him. But for prayers that were being said at that point in time. And they kept driving off, so fast with the security, jumping into their cars. If you see any of these presidential convoys, you'll get the picture. Then eventually, of course, the last ones that were holding Emeka now wanted to jump into their car. And as they let go of Emeka, I think that's when Emeka was so upset, frustrated by being held on for so long, and punched that one. And of course, that was the video they took. Oh, Emeka is fighting with these DSS people. I mean, who comes to place a wreath with 40 armed policemen and security vehicles? My father's house, for you to get to where the mausoleum is, you have to pass my father's. You have to drive past my father's house. They didn't come to say, oh, Daddy wants to go to Herbert. We're going to Herbert. We'll see you.
They didn't come to say hi.
No, they didn't say hi. They didn't say good afternoon. What we didn't even realize was that my nieces and nephew were in that car. So Ike brought David and Tochi and Hannah. He didn't bring them to see their grandparents, to even say hello to their grandparents. In presence of these children, their uncle, I was there, my younger sister was there, their uncle, their father's younger brother, was being manhandled and falling to the floor. Can you only imagine what trauma Can you imagine what trauma these children would be going through? This is a year after their parents have passed on, and they see their uncle being manhandled by police, falling on the floor. You're almost driving over him. I was there begging. They weren't allowed to come down to even say hello to their uncle or their aunties. They didn't pass by their grandparents to say, oh, Grandpa, we are coming. And then at the same time as they do, they were now shipped, they were now flown back to Lagos. And guess what? In the evening around 7, we now got security around the house, came back to arrest Emeka. How many security vehicles? 3 security vehicles to arrest Emeka, took Emeka, and then in the village, in my parents' compound, were shooting up in the air like armed robbers. Shooting up after taking Emeka, started shooting up in the air. Where a 90-year-old person, 80-something-year-old, where they were going through the grieving of their son. We've been asking ourselves, what really is the problem? Because from where we sit, we don't...
Yeah, because me too, I find we just don't understand what the problem is.
All we are saying is, can you be transparent with us? And can these things be put in investment vehicles that everyone can see and know, so that when these children come of age, they will be able to ask.
Not as if you're asking that you be given a share.
No, we're not asking because I'm not to inherit Herbert. We are not to inherit, but we have a duty to make sure that Herbert's children are provided for, because he and Doreen had worked hard enough to have these children provided for. And that is what we have sought from day one. So with all of this that has happened, you know, people have come and they're asking questions. What really is this about? Is it about Herbert's assets, or is it about Herbert's children? If it is about providing, if it's about Herbert's children or asset, why do you need to bring security personnel? I mean, why all of this drama? You know, if it is about estate, we really are at a loss, because we hear there is enough to go around, and we are not even asking to be given anything. We are saying, can you allow the family to bring up the children in the way we have brought up our children, with nurture, love, and Christian values? That is what we have asked. And can you just be transparent as to what belongs to Herbert, and so that if these children become of age...
And as family members, it's not too much to ask.
It is not too much to ask, because the parents have already worked hard for these children. And so we don't understand why that is so complex and cannot be, and Iboje refuses to answer. I guess why it is even more complicated is the fact that when all of this started and we got information about Herbert's property, I got some lists of properties that belong to Herbert, Emeka got some lists of properties. We shared them all with Iboje. We forwarded them to Iboje because my father said, oh, let's work together as one to build, a compendium of inventory of Herbert's things so that we have it in one spot. So I sent it to Iboje and he told me, oh, thank you. Emeka sent the same, he said, oh, thank you. So how do you get all of these properties? And then you turn around and the narrative is that we are trying to take, you have all the properties, you have the children. I don't know. People are asking questions, and we also begin to wonder what the real story is. And it begins to make us wonder, because we then cast our mind back to, what really initiated all of these things. In other words, Herbert is not really a great Super Bowl fan. Herbert is really a polo fan. What is it that made him go for Super Bowl? Who organized this trip that took him there at this point in time? It has raised a lot of questions, because we found out that, maybe, they can tell us, because, Iboje knows better. We understand he's responsible for organizing the trip, that particular trip. What company did they use? I understand that the company that was used is a company that that had been negligent in the past, and they had chosen not to use. So the question now is, why did you go back to using a company that you knew was negligent and would typically not be used? Why was it now?
Have you filed charges against this company?
No, we haven't filed charges against the company, because, it's just questions that are coming up in our minds. So when he now when I put forward a law firm that they chose not to use, and they said, oh no, I'm using it for my personal aggrandizement, yet they went behind and used the same law firm without letting us know, and we had to then find out 5 months later. You begin to understand, I don't understand the sneaky behavior. I really don't understand. There's been so many questions raised: the trip, the arrangement of the flights, the way the lawyers were got. Or they'll tell you Tochi got. I said, but Tochi does not have the experience and the skill to retain law firms, and at the same time use the one that you said I brought that was substandard. What happened? Why
did you go back?
Why did you go back there behind our back? Apparently they didn't realize it was the same one. They went back. They didn't realize it was the one, because I found out that it was the same person I was talking to. So it's raised so many questions in our minds, because we really don't, and people are asking me questions which I can't answer to. Truly, what I'd like to say is, we come from a very close family. We are highly educated. Herbert's children, which are my nieces and nephews, they need nurturing. I'm a mother. So this at night, who is holding Hannah? At night, who is holding David? Who is hugging Okachi? Who is telling Tochi it's going to be all right? You know, who is talking to them at 3 a.m. when they're crying on their beds? Do you know what pain we have to deal with? That they're in the house by themselves and nobody, because at 2, 3 a.m. when these children are going through.
So none of you has access to
No,
them?
no, we
can't
don't.
go to the house?
No, if we go to the house, you know, at the gates, they'll tell you either she's not in or you know, we will check or we will see. They come up with stories. You know, they come up with stories, and even my parents are put in a very embarrassing situation. I mean, they've gone there before and they said, oh, sorry, she's in a meeting. Before you know it, oh, sorry, she has left the house. You know, they don't get to see the child. So we're going through a very difficult time with children that are ours, and before our eyes, we are seeing something that is completely inconsistent with our values, our nurturing. We don't leave children alone in our family. We hug and love on our kids, especially at a time like this, because for healing, we need them to heal. We need them to heal, and they need us to heal. The grandparents need to see their grandchildren around to heal. So the whole idea of cordoning them off, putting them there, and not allowing them access, and yet we don't know where their fathers and their parents' estate is for them, for their future. We don't want a situation. They live in that house. What if somebody comes up tomorrow and says, oh, okay, you've run up the bill for the house, now the money is finished, we can't. What about if those surprises come? Then you can't quite interrogate that, because in the first place, you didn't even know how much there was, right? So you can't quite say, oh, the money has run out. So we're asking, we want to be able to manage the expenses. We want to know what is going on. We want to be able to know how the bills are run. We don't want any surprises coming up. So you're refusing to tell us, leaves us at your mercy. And there's such a high risk, because if anything, if you choose to use up the money in things that shouldn't be used up with, these children are going to be left without any form of inheritance at the end of the day. How are they going to cope? They're going to have to come back to us. So at this point in time, we want to be there for our children. We want to be there when they're crying at 2 a.m., 3 a.m. We want to be able to dry their eyes and tell them it's okay. That is really what we want. And want to make sure that they become as rounded and mentally stable as much as possible. They see all that's going on the internet. Tell me what that does to them. So, them pushing out the narrative, or Aiboje pushing out the narrative of all of this, is it supposed to help the children? Are you really helping the children? Who are you trying to smear? Are you helping Herbert's children, your friend and your brother? Is that really the best thing to do? His parents he loved most, are you helping them with the sort of narrative you're pushing out in the media, and they all have access to cell phones and they have access to friends? Whose interest is being served in all this? If you say his father wants some interest, are you better placed to hold Herbert's interest, Herbert's monies for Wigwe family than the Wigwes? Why is it you? Why are you the only one that you believe is the only one that should hold Herbert's money and not account to anybody? These children are Wigwes. Whether there is money, there is no money. At the end of the day, whether they are good, they are bad, they are children. So why are you better placed to hold their father's estate than them or than the family they come from?